Ahead of the Herd, Results That Lead is a limited series podcast from GPS Dairy Consulting, highlighting how the next generation of consultants is driving meaningful change on modern dairies. In each episode, GPS NextGen consultants share how they approach complex challenges, earn trust quickly, and turn insight into action without being bound by how it's always been done. These conversations focus on thinking, leadership, and accountability. If you're interested in what it really takes to stay ahead of the herd, these conversations are for you.
Leadership doesn't begin with the title. It begins with how you listen, how you communicate, and how you show up when decisions get uncomfortable. On Progressive Dairies, trust is built quickly, or not at all. Today's conversation is about earning credibility, leading before you're asked to, and preparing people and operations for what's next. King, it's all yours.
Thanks, Peggy. Today's panel brings together three GPS dairy consultants who work at the intersection of technical expertise, communication, and leadership. They earn trust quickly, they navigate difficult conversations, and they help teams move forward even when the change isn't comfortable. So let's meet our consultants. Megan Abeyta, first, brings a science-driven approach and a calm authority to the farm she works with. She's skilled at translating research into practical decision-making and helping teams move forward with confidence, especially when the path isn't obvious. So, Megan, how do you build trust when you're asking a team to do or think differently, especially when the science challenges long-held practices?
Yeah, thanks, Kate.
We've always done it this way. Yeah,
yeah, the most dangerous words on any farm, huh? Mm-hmm. So I guess I've learned over the years that trust doesn't always mean you have to show up with the right answer. And, I like your approach about science, specifically challenging long-held beliefs. And me, I like science, I like data. I got my PhD at Iowa State University. And of course, I would use that as a tool quite often on my farms. But I like to joke that one of the biggest and most important things my PhD taught me is that I don't actually know anything. Right. And I tease, we go to school for all these years and we learn all this stuff. But at the end of the day, context is always changing on farms and in the industry as a whole. So we always have to be comfortable with challenging assumptions and challenging ourselves. So when I show up on farm and I'm trying to build trust with somebody, I don't think it's in the attitude of I'm trying to prove somebody wrong with the science that I know. It's more about using that science as a tool to help that farmer achieve their goals. And, I have to have communication with them about what those goals are and use science as a tool from there.
All right. Thank you. Jordan Hunt is our next consultant. Jordan Hunt is a strong communicator and change driver who focuses on aligning people around decisions. He brings energy and clarity to complex situations, and he's especially effective at turning strategy into action across the whole team. So, Jordan, what do you focus on first when you're trying to get buy-in for change across the entire team?
Well, it's nice being here with all of you. It's a really good question as far as getting the buy-in. The first thing that I always try to do is kind of meet them where they're currently at in the situation, really understand maybe what the roadblocks are. And from there, it's not always about me talking. It's probably more listening, right? So then it's asking the right question, open-ended questions that kind of mine out what their concerns are. And from there, then we can start making headway on really making sure that I'm attacking it in a way that they're going to feel comfortable in approaching the situation.
Yeah, good. I always think when you're driving across the whole team, you really have to be really on point with your vision, right? You got to really sell the vision.
You have to sell it and being concise with your language and what you're asking of them. Because if you're not, you can create confusion, and that confusion alone can be enough to derail what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, good. Lastly, but not least, Dr. Andy Bohnhoff, fellow veterinarian, works at the intersection of people, systems, and long-term outcomes. He helps operations build alignment, anticipate challenges, and lead change in a way that's sustainable. Andy brings a big picture lens with a practical team-first approach. So, Andy, what does leadership look like on a dairy before anyone gives it a title?
Yeah, I think leadership can look a lot of different ways, but for me, it looks like action. It looks like you care and curiosity. You know, you have to be curious about the operation and why people are doing certain things. I like to talk to all the stakeholders and employees and figure out, you know, where they think the roadblocks are, get that whole picture, get everybody, you know, in communication, and then, you know, let them all know what the vision is, what we're trying to get to, and ask them how can they help, you know, get to that goal, and then bring everybody together and talk about what we came up with and move forward. Let's go. Let's do it.
Get her done.
Yep.
All right, great. So, Megan, you talked about trust earlier. So here's a good question. And it's for all of you. We'll just have a conversation on this, but what breaks trust faster than almost anything else?
Over-promising and under-delivering is a big one. You know, I think it's really important that we communicate effectively and communicate limitations, but also, you know, have confidence in your experience and show up when you say you're going to show up. I think that's pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, Megan hit on a big thing there, but following up in an appropriate time on whatever it is you said you would do for the farm, right? And when you don't do that, it creates a question on their behalf, like, oh, I was expecting this from Jordan. How come I haven't seen it yet? And it might not seem like a lot, but if you become repetitive in that habit, it's going to erode trust really quickly.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, all those points. And just making sure that, you know, we have a couple of things that we worked on and follow up with it. You know, and some producers, they'll communicate a lot. They'll call you all the time, and others never do. And either way, you have to still call them, follow up. Hey, how are we doing on this? Did you do X, Y, and Z? What do you need from me? And yeah, just that follow up and follow through.
Yeah. Kind of go along with that. What do you do differently in the first 30 days with a new client to establish credibility? You might not do all the time, but maybe you would too. Right off the bat, how do you establish credibility?
I think that the first 30 days is so important, King. It is like make or break, and in this business, you have to be on your toes. So preparing is like number one. Making sure you're very well prepared before going on that dairy, bringing them something, you know, new and something that you want to bring, you know, to their team. But also, you have to understand their operation, and the only way you're going to do that is by getting out and talking to people, everybody on the farm, talking to the feeders, asking them questions. You know, even people that you think maybe you don't have to talk to them too. Right. You know, everyone has actually great ideas, and everyone's going to have the answer probably before you might, or even the owner might. So I find that super important, and getting ahead of data as well, I think, so you can show them how you're improving their bottom line and profitability. So getting that set up ahead of time right away.
Great.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of those same points. And I would also say it starts even before the first 30 days during the prospecting venture, right? And sometimes things roll out a lot faster and you don't have time, right? But, you know, when in a traditional client relationship where you're prospecting them and you're learning what their goals are, what are their pain points, and, you know, you give that proposal, you're like, hey, this is how I can help with those pain points. I think those first 30 days are like, okay, I'm hired. Now I got to do it. You know?
The real work starts.
Now the real work starts. And that's actually one of the most exciting parts for me. And I think something that I do in those first 30 days is make sure that everything else is going well on the farm so that my diet or whatever change I've implemented has the best chance of success. So that means I'm waking up at sometimes 3:30 in the morning and I'm going out there to watch feeding, and I'm going to go look at that TMR mixer and make sure that it's performing well. And, you know, what are push-ups like? Are we putting cameras in the barn? You know, there's a myriad of ways that we can do that. But I think that when I check those boxes and the diet goes in and you see the progress, it's really exciting and fulfilling for me, but I think it also establishes credibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all awesome points, Andy and Megan. And I would expand upon too is like just creating the vision, kind of what are those kind of quick wins you're trying to accomplish in the beginning, and making sure the dairy understands what those are too, because it is okay to celebrate success too. And that creates trust and makes the working relationship more fun. And so if you can have some of that early on, that helps a lot. Another thing that I'd like to do is just like really understand the personalities of the people that I'm working with, because sometimes might have differences. So I want to make sure if I need to flex my personality a little bit more to kind of meet them where they're at, and make sure I'm not kind of missing anything in the communication, understanding what their communication preferences are, and that we're hitting that, and the different team channels that they might have on their dairy, and being engaged on those, and just being responsive to requests or concerns that might come up are probably the biggest things that I can think about.
Just do what you say you're gonna do, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So how do you respond when a team is polite but clearly not bought in? You've got a change you want to make, and they're clearly not on track with you.
I am a big believer in just having hard conversations and not calling it out in a very nice way, and not saying like, hey, I could tell you're not on board. Like, I like to point out like, hey, I can tell you're really ruminating over something, or like maybe you're not on the same page. I'd really love to know your thoughts and in this solution that I've offered. And because these farmers always are going to know more about their farms than we do. And there's oftentimes context behind why they might disagree with the solution you're bringing forward. And oftentimes they're right. And so I think it's just really important to give them the platform to feel comfortable saying why that might not work on their farm.
Yeah, it's all about communication. And yeah, exactly what Megan said. Why haven't you bought in? Go head on with it. You have to, because you can't just limp by and not, say anything.
Right.
That's not going to be good for anybody, and you're going to find yourself not on that farm, very long. So you got to hit it head on. And, they, like Megan said, they have a good reason, why. Maybe they've tried it before and they failed, so maybe you can talk about how you can implement something similar, but, a little bit more tailored to their farm.
Yeah.
So yeah, just having that conversation.
Right. So communication under pressure. So when change gets uncomfortable, what do you lean on most? Data, relationships, or consistency?
Oh, I would argue probably all three. For me,
you can't do all three most.
Fair enough. For me, it is about relationships. That's just my personality. I'm going to lean really hard on the relationships that I have on the farm, and really get candid about, what it is about the change that is, creating a disruption. Okay. And then once we understand that, we should have some, path forward that we can take. But getting to kind of that root issue is, for me, kind of the biggest thing. And having a strong relationship makes an uncomfortable situation a lot easier, in my opinion.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think for me, it's relationship as well. You can show people all the numbers in the world, but if there's no buy-in and if you haven't convinced them, then you have to work on the relationship first. And once you get it to be their idea, well, then maybe you can get somewhere, or you can, communicate the importance of it, or have them realize it, because evidently that change is too difficult, and there's a roadblock there, and you're not going to get through it by showing a couple numbers.
Right.
I would agree with that. I do primarily focus on relationship, but I will advocate a little bit for data here too, because I think it's actually more common than I realized back when I started nutrition, that there's not always the best record keeping on farms and data in general. And I would get these responses from farmers. Oh, I feel like our peas are worse. I feel like this. And then you go, you look at it and you're like, well, the data doesn't support that. And so I've really tried to build better data keeping systems on farms. And that doesn't mean I'm like overriding dairy comp or anything. I just will create something that works for that producer. And Google Sheets seems to work. It depends on what their style is, you know, to track milk production, to track, you know, RPs and health events or whatever it is. And I will rely on that data in those circumstances to say, well, yeah, I know you feel like this is changing, but this is indicating that it's not. So I think that's important too.
You can have twice as many animals and had half as many metritis, but it's still more than you. Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The data does ground you, to your point.
Yeah.
And if you have a really good relationship,
Right.
it just expedites that whole process of,
Absolutely.
you know, uncomfortable situations, and, you know, you can get through it a lot quicker and move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Data is important as well. Yeah, I mean, the transparency of knowing and everybody knowing it's black and white. It's right there. You can't dispute it, you know, then you can move on.
So I'll throw this out. So you're trying to implement a change and you're getting the pushback. Where does consistency come in on that equation, as far as you've agreed on what the change is, you've agreed on what the advantage is, or what the win is going to be, and how does consistency play on getting them through that resistance or uncomfortableness of the change?
I think this is a hard one because I think it can go both ways. I've had experiences with clients that, you know, we try to implement something and by day 2, if it's not working, then it's out, you know.
And what do they want to do?
And you got to be like,
Revert back.
They want to go back to what
they're going to go back. And so you got to say,
Yeah.
wait, like cows are biological beings. This takes some time. We got to give the team time to adapt to this new change and to, you know, get the tweaks and all the little things out of the way. But there's also the point where if you're trying to consistently say this message and after a long enough period of time it's not working, you got to be comfortable challenging yourself too. So
When
yeah,
they're
maybe that
clearly
wasn't
not
the
on it.
solution, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit of both, but you got to, you know, rely a little bit on experience, but a little bit on reading the room and the context and everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you can't be afraid to pivot if it's
Right.
truly warranted. And that's where, you know, as consultant and a leader, you have to be real about the situation. And there might be a point in time where it's like, yeah, you guys did, you know, everything I asked,
Yeah.
and it's still not happening the way we want. So we'll go back to the drawing board, right?
I was
Great.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say no.
Great. What's the difference between being heard and being followed? And think about leadership, either yours or your managers. Or
Yeah, I think getting heard is people acknowledging what you said, but then they don't do anything. You know, if they truly believe in what you're saying and you put the systems in place, they're gonna do it. And if they don't do it, I think you haven't had 100% buy-in from the whole team. So I think for me that's the difference. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It's just action, right? It's the follow through that shows there's leadership or that they're really listening.
Yep.
Yeah, and my goal is always like, you know, I hope I've done a good enough job of, you know, explaining things and getting the buy-in that they want to follow, you know, what we're recommending. And if I'm not seeing that, then it clearly tells me that, you know, I didn't do a good enough job.
Or they didn't hear you.
Or they didn't hear me.
I always say there's a difference between hearing and listening, or been listening and hearing, or you can be heard without being listened to. And you have to get to where they're really listening. So, leadership without authority. So what does leadership look like when you don't have formal authority?
I think that's our job in a nutshell. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, we go on farms, and I think, like I was kind of talking about before, when we go around and talk to the different employees and the people on the farm about, you know, how we're going to get to our goals, and just getting buy-in from all those employees, I think that's really, you know, showing leadership. But at the same time, you might not have the authority to tell them exactly what they have to do, and that might have to come from upper management. But at the same time, you're planting that seed, you're taking action, and at the end of the day, you're setting the stage for you and the dairy to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very well said. For me, leadership without authority really encompasses of like just leading by example and being that person, that trusted person on the farm that they come to when they're looking for new ideas, and providing that, and being unselfish. If don't think that maybe I'm the right person that can bring it, like bringing someone else in, to help, whether it's, someone from our team, Megan, Andy, King, I mean, any of you guys. That's the power of GPS,
right,
is the group of unique individuals that we have, different strengths, and leveraging those strengths for the betterment of our clients. And, to me, that's leadership.
Yeah, awesome. So how do you influence decisions when you're not the one making the final call?
I mean, I think that's similar to the last question, right? I mean, I think it's about building the trust and being humble enough to bring in other people when you're maybe not the right answer, because then they recognize that whatever you're bringing to the table, you truly believe and you care that this is going to help them achieve their goals, right? So it's really it just takes some time to build influence on a farm and to establish that credibility. But once you do, then they trust you,
So as a nutritionist on a dairy, do you really, there's times you might make the final call, or they'll ask you to make the final call, but are you typically the one that makes the final call?
I wouldn't say typically. Now, they want, confidence in that decision. That's usually the way I see it. It's like the buck probably won't stop at me,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to know that, I'm confident in that decision. That gives them the confidence to proceed forward. They're the ones at the end of the day making the checks out for
Right.
everything. So.
It's funny, there's such a wide variety of styles and people and personalities, and you've got some farmers that are like, I don't really care what's in the diet, just do it. I don't want to see it. I don't, and you have other ones that want to sit there and go through every little thing with you. And I think adapting to those styles and understanding what they want helps that. So
Yeah, every farm is different.
Every farm's
That's one
different.
farm where you have to get one person buy-in and then action will happen. And I have other farms where, you have a meeting and all the team members sit down and we collectively agree that this is the next step that needs to happen. And it's a team decision. So yeah, all different. And like Megan said, you just have to adapt with the different cultures on different farms.
So this is a really good question. What's something you've learned about leadership by watching others do it poorly?
Well, I haven't rode with you, King, enough.
All right.
Zinger.
shots fired.
Oh, no, King is a phenomenal leader. Okay, so in all seriousness, starting out in my career, I was very green and young, and I had some good mentors, and this was before my time at GPS, but I vividly remember being around people that when, the moment was big, they'd shrink. And to me, it's like, that's not a leader, right? I mean, when the pressure's on and, someone needs to step up, like, step up, it's your time to make it happen. And it's maybe a little bit because I'm a sports fanatic and, I think of it, kind of like that. It's like the starting quarterback goes down, like the backup, like you're in, it's your time to shine type of thing.
Yep.
And so from my just previous experiences and seeing that, it's like, I never wanted to be that. Like, if I have my chance, like, I'm doing it.
I totally agree with all of those points. One of my particular, pet peeves is not the right word, but again, I'm going to say people that are willing to have the important and necessary hard conversations are good leaders to me. Like I've had leaders and mentors in the past that avoid conflict when they're leading a group, let's just say of employees, for example. And maybe there's some conflict or there's some trouble going on within the group. And maybe it's driven from one person with a bad attitude who's not bought into the culture, right? And when the person in charge isn't willing to address those issues, it can it takes away from everybody else on your team that is wanting to be there to show up for you. And maybe they're not showing up in the way that they could because they're not feeling supported when they come to you with these issues. And I think really when it comes to those types of employee disgruntlements or whatever it is, I think you're doing a kindness to the people that are there to advocate and help you achieve your goals by approaching that problem. And it doesn't always mean firing that person. Sometimes it means just asking them why they're behaving in a certain way. Maybe there's a really valid reason and you're just totally unaware. But when I've had experience with leaders who are not willing to have those conversations, it just drags the problem on further and then nobody's getting ahead.
Got it, yep.
Yeah, I've had a lot of different roles in my career, and one instance in particular, I had somebody working under me, and I just kept hearing the same thing from customers, and it was, yeah, he's a great guy, but he doesn't show up when he's supposed to. He doesn't follow through when he says he's going to do things. So, definitely you learn, in those circumstances what not to do and how not to be if you want to be a leader. So, yeah.
So back to what you were saying, Megan, that one of the questions, how do you handle disagreement without slowing progress? We were around a dairy together where we kind of witnessed that. So there's disagreement, but there's no progress. So why is that?
Oh, why? Well, I guess
because they're not having the tough
conversations, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you need to separate the goal from the method.
Right.
You might have disagreements on the method, but generally everybody has the same goal.
Right.
Right. And so if you have the same goal, you can sit down and say, okay, this method's not working. Let's put all the methods on the table. Which one is going to make everyone happy? What's realistic? And you got to have the whole team there to talk about it. You can't be talking with Joe over here and Elizabeth over there and whatever. Everyone needs to be in the same room so we can identify, how is this going to work?
Right. You can't just say, let's agree to disagree.
Yeah, no, it's not going to go anywhere.
You're not going to make progress, right?
Probably not.
Yeah.
On a dairy, trust isn't built on promises. It's built on consistent systems and tools that work. That's where the barn comes in. GPS Dairy Consulting developed the barn as a central hub for learning, collaboration, and growth. Clients can access FeedFit modules, stay connected to upcoming events and GPS DairyCAST episodes, explore services, and provide employees with structured training opportunities all in one place. Leadership isn't just about the next decision. It's about building systems that support progress over time. If you're ready to strengthen your operation for the next chapter, explore the barn at gpsdairy.com.
So what's one thing leaders on progressive dairies that you guys work with do consistently that others overlook?
First one that comes to my mind would be they're just really good communicators.
Yep.
And, the team is bought into the vision of the operation because it's been clearly communicated to the team. And, you go there and every day, pretty set schedules and, people know what they're supposed to be doing. Even in times of, chaos breakdowns, like it doesn't feel like chaos because everyone knows their role on the farm, knows what they need to do. They trust each other and things just run smoothly. To me, that's probably a couple of the biggest things that I see on farms that just have really good leadership.
I totally agree with that. I mean, on the progressive dairies where they're just killing it, you go, and I know of one dairy that has like monthly parlor trainings, monthly maternity trainings, and it might be several of the same people, but you're just constantly talking, but you're also getting everybody that is important in the actual success of the farm, like all the people in the barns, they get them all together talking all the time and everybody has buy-in and they show all the data on the board to everybody so that they all know that how their job is impacting the goals of that farm and they can see the progress of change when change is implemented. And I think showing people how they're important creates buy-in, it creates culture, and I think that that's really what gets a farm going. Like Jordan said, everyone's running around doing their job and trusting each other.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say I know, some farms that don't do a great job. It's the ones that, you bring up your idea and they think it's great and it needs to be implemented, and you're like, all right, let's get it done. And they say, well, you need to talk to that guy because it's like talking to a brick wall. Well, obviously, you don't have buy-in from one of your key players.
Yeah.
So there's an issue there. So they're gonna have issues moving forward. And the opposite is, when they want to implement a plan, everyone seems to communicate effectively, have buy-in, and they quickly act on it.
Right.
So,
I think how I would answer that question is that I see some leaders is the consistency in how they react, how they communicate. An employee may come to them one time and they get yelled at for doing something wrong. The next time they come to them, they say, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. They don't know what the reaction's going to be. So after a while, they just don't come to the leader because they don't want to deal with what it might be, So I think it's just consistency and walking through day to day, and
Never too high, never too low.
right.
yeah.
Yeah. And not avoiding conversations. This is the last question. Are you still having fun?
Always.
Been great.
Right. What's a leadership lesson you learned the hard way and wouldn't give back?
I was
Leadership lesson you learned the hard way.
really humbled in grad school, I'll say. I think all of us in this room, a lot of people in the industry, we're all go-getters. We all like to think that we can do everything, right? We all work really hard, et cetera. And I was in grad school and I had a research project, and I didn't want to bother everyone else with putting abomasal infusion lines. And for the sake of the story, it was just an item that had to be done on multiple cows. And I thought I could do it by myself with my undergrads because I didn't want to bother everyone else and I could do it.
Sure.
Well, get there the morning of, and sure enough, all my lines were clogged and I'm not strong enough to unclog them. And we had to delay the project a day. And my professor at the time got really mad. He's like, where's everybody else? Why aren't the other grad students here? And I was like, well, I didn't ask them to come. And he's like, why didn't you ask them to come? I was like, I didn't think I needed the help. And it was a really humbling experience for me. And I think I would not give it back because it was really foundational in me understanding that I can't be all and do all. And even though I've got a really good skill set, and I'm really confident, all those things, I am always asking for help. I am always asking for other people's opinions because I'm not always right and I can't do everything by myself. And even though I work really hard, I think I've only just grown because of that. So I'm really thankful for that experience because now I ask for help and things get done well.
Yep.
Delegating. Got to be able to delegate. For me, I would say early on in my career, I got really frustrated on, providing advice to farms and not seeing them implement some of the changes. And it just I couldn't figure out, what I was missing. It's these are good ideas. I just don't get why. And, fortunate to have, good mentors and Marty Faldette, spent a lot of time with him early on when I joined GPS. And, he was just great at giving feedback along the lines of you have to be more concise and confident in the recommendations that you're providing. You're half bought in, so they're not going to take it. And you're iron, pan in the face type of thing. Well, yeah. And, just that simple lesson has been so impactful for me because now it's rather than just throwing out something, it's I got to be really clear on that. And if it means me having a little more work up front to kind of help the process along, nurture, you might say, get the right people involved on the farm so it's a win, do it, And those were the things that I was not doing before. And, once I started doing that, it's no problem, right? I mean, got past the, people not adapting or, taking the recommendation.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I remember one of my first herds. It was one of my first large herds, and going around and talking to the people that needed to take action, and I was doing a good job of communicating with all those people. And every visit, I was just like, well, nothing's happening like I thought. And eventually, I came to realize that I needed to get all those people together in the same room because two of them didn't get along, and so they were constantly, I don't know, it almost seemed like sabotaging each other, so to speak.
Right.
And it wasn't until I brought everybody together before I realized that, and also before I realized that nothing was going to happen unless I got everybody together. And it wasn't easy. It was tough. It was uncomfortable, but that's what I needed to do on that farm if I wanted something to happen. So
Awesome. Well, Jordan, Megan, Andy, thanks for being here on this episode of Head of the Herd, Leading with Results. And we look forward to working with you and having you back for another one someday. But I hope our audience can see these are the people you want running your nutrition program on your dairy.
Thanks, King.
Yep,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Kenny. Enjoyed it. It was a lot of
It was
fun.
fun.
See you next time.
Leadership doesn't always come with a title, but it always shows up in how decisions are made, communicated, and followed through. This conversation is part of GPS Dairy Consulting's NextGen campaign, highlighting consultants who are already leading change on progressive dairies. Watch for individual consultant reels, behind-the-scenes clips, and additional content that expands on today's discussion. Thank you for being part of Ahead of the Herd, Results That Lead.